Wonderful. And it's Wednesday workshop time, and we are on session 5 of the mindset sessions. And today we're going to be looking at creative mindset and creativity. And I know that people who come to iMeditate are already quite creative already. And that's a wonderful thing. And there tends to be two types of people when it comes to creativity. There's those who, you are a creative person and you know it, and you do creative things. And there's also the people who are creative people, but they just don't realize it. And so today, yeah, we're going to look at, just drop a few thoughts and ideas in around creativity, and at the end look at a nice method. It's I like all the different techniques that I've learned, but it's a nice method for clearing if you have that creative block, that sense of creative block in an aspect of your life. It can be used for any sort of blockage. I've used, in fact, the method I'm going to share with you. I've used to help somebody who got in touch from New Zealand the once, saying that they had a block to meditation, and it's a really quick process. I was like, where do you feel that? What's it look like? Let's move it. And within 10-15 minutes, they suddenly went, whatever that was, I know I can do it now. And yeah, they picked up their practice and carried on. So it's a great but simple technique. The best ones always are simple. So we're going to look at that, and then we're going to look at installing a creative mindset. And developing creativity is a wonderful thing, because there's that fact that, like, we think about creativity as being art and music, and Jace, I know, has done a bit of conjuring, and magic is a creative art in itself. And it's good to have these expressions of it, but creativity is so much more than this. Developing creativity helps us enhance the designs and the plans and the goals that we have for our lives. We can think, if we're creative with our ideas, we can create a bigger picture, a bigger image of where we want to be and what we want to be doing. And you might as well, you might as well think big, because if you think big, even if you only get half the way, might be as far as you'd have got if you are actually only thinking small. Great, I need to create some social media posts. I've been stuck getting it done. I've had quite a few people actually who've got, my creative flow recently has stopped, and I need to shift it. I worked with someone last week, in fact. So yeah, developing creativity helps enhance our designs, our plans, our dreams for the future. And as a human being, the beauty of it is, regardless of whether you think you're creative or not, as a human being, you can be nothing other than creative. Now, we can take this to an extreme, in as much as tomorrow, the world tomorrow does not exist yet. You cannot take me to tomorrow. We are on the very edge of creation. Whatever creation was, that started everything, it's still happening, it's ongoing, and it continues to go on and forward. So every action that we do is part of that creating this next moment, that next moment, and also is creating the history of tomorrow. So just by being alive as a human being, you are having a creative impact upon the rest of the world and existence. You can't avoid it. That's quite he says, almost knocking off one of his own creative works off the wall. That's a vast and massive thing to consider. Every action you make is creating this moment, and it's creating a past, and every action you make is part of the ongoing creation of all that is. Which is quite a mad and wonderful thought. So when we think of creativity, we think of arts, we think of music, painting, drawing, etc. And yet, if you think about it, every action, every act that you carry out contains an element of creation. If you take creation as being the initial imagining of something. So I know we've done in workshops in the past where we will place our hands on our legs or on a table, or we close our eyes and we imagine that we cannot open our eyes, or we imagine that we cannot lift our hands up, and we create the reality where for a while we do find our eyes are stuck, and we do find. So getting out of bed in the morning is an act of creativity. You got a picture, you got to think, what am I going to wear today? Well, there you go. Instantly, you're thinking, what am I going to wear today? That you are creating how you're going to look for the day. What am I having for breakfast? There you go. Act of creation. The act of putting that breakfast into the bowl or putting it under the grill or whatever you're having is another act of creation. How am I going to go to work today? Am I driving? Am I going to take the bus? Am I going to walk? Again, you're creating, you're imagining possibilities, and you're choosing them, and you're making them happen. This is creativity. This is creativity. And being creative and thinking creatively, which I guess in some ways is kind of more where I'm focusing with this in that sense, empowers us. And it's one thing I learned from, oh, I've clicked the wrong thing there, sorry. It's one thing, the things that actually doing, I was mentioning before, magic, and when you learn to do tricks, when you learn to do tricks, magic is at the essence, from the performer's perspective, a form of problem solving. They're quite bizarre problems, like how do I make this pen float, or how do I make this coin disappear? But it's a creative process to then come up and find that way. And one thing that's taught me, and the one thing that thinking creatively gives us, is the ability to flow and flex and change with what life presents us. If we limit our thinking, if we're too logical and boxing everything up, then when change comes along, it can, and that's an inevitable, it can be difficult to move our position or change. Whereas if we're creatively thinking, if we nurture our creativity, and something comes up out of the blue, a challenge, we can go, oh, I wasn't expecting this, but because we're creative, we can then go, well, let's see, how am I going to get through this? And our minds will start creating possible ways of getting around a situation. So it's good to nurture creativity in all forms. When I started my Druid journey, the first part of that is the Bardic grade, and that's very much as part of your spirituality, fostering creativity in whatever form, whether that's having to go at poetry, whether it was having to go and playing an instrument. And the thing is, and this is one of the main reasons that people don't do creative stuff as they get older, and it was one of the beautiful things about the Bardic grade, is that you are not being creative to necessarily be good at something. You're not creating, and Fee sees it when she's teaching art classes. People go, oh, I used to love drawing, but, and I don't do it anymore. And you can guarantee somebody at some point has criticized them and gone, oh, that's no good, or you're not very good at this and that. And they've heard it a few times, and so they stop because they believe somebody else that they're not very good. Well, the thing is, creativity, and anyone that makes anything will I think agree with this. It's wonderful. Like Sally, you showed us that fabulous card, and it's great to have the finished thing there. But the real joy of creativity is just the creating. That's what feeds our soul. That's what makes us feel good. Well, if it's the creativity that is the bit that feeds us, that nurtures us, it doesn't matter whether that thing that we create turns out wonderful or whether no one ever sees it again. Because if you're just doing it for the creative process, to be part of that creativity and create, the creative process is going on around us all the time. We see it more at this time of year, but it's constant, it's everywhere. So one way to foster creativity is to let go of the idea that if you're going for something artsy or musical, you don't have to be good at it. You just have to enjoy it. We've got the music session that started up in town last year, and there's people that we were chatting about this at supper just, and there's people that come and they're amazing. There's a few people who turn up and it's a joy to hear them sing or to watch them play. And there's some other people that turn up who are all right. They've not been doing it very long. They, you know, it's not as enjoyable to listen to as those people who are amazing. However, that's not what those sessions are about. Those sessions are about coming together and sharing that creativity at whatever level you are. But also in the gift of creating it for someone. Yeah, completely as well. So forget the idea that if you're exploring creativity, you have to have something that's amazing at the end of it. You don't. You just have to enjoy the process. And the more you explore the process of being creative, the more, a bit like with me with the magic, the more that way of thinking develops. And it's that creative way of thinking that enriches life. You know, a problem can be a real kind of head against the wall pain of a thing, or it can be a creative challenge. And if you're thinking creatively, you're going to enjoy working through that challenge more than if it's just a problem that you're banging your head against a wall with. So it teaches us to flex, it teaches us to move and flow and be able to adapt. The more creative we are, the more able we are to adapt. It has its place in business. A lot of very successful business people have creative processes that have got them to where they go. There was a thing I was reading as I was putting this together, and there's I can't remember who it was. Quite a very, very wealthy multi-millionaire business guy, and he still, with all the new products they put out, he will still spend time when the idea first is presented and comes, imagining what it would be like if he was the client, the customer buying that thing. And he said he'll spend hours imagining taking them out of the box, looking at it. How does it look? How does it feel? How do I feel as I'm getting this out? Am I excited, even though it might be something every day? Is it something that I go, oh, this is great? Again, a creative process that informs the rest of what he does. Creativity is also healing. The ability to imagine and create is a powerful tool for personal change and for healing. And I'm going to bring up a picture, if I've done this right. I don't often do this, do I? Oh, there he is. This is a picture of a gentleman who is one of my biggest inspirations. The guy was amazing. So much so, on my wall of people that have inspired me, he's right above my head here. Don't think you can see it, but I'll tip the camera up in a minute. But I've got a picture of him just there. Can we all see that? This guy is Milton H. Erickson, known as the Wizard of the West. He is, to date, probably America's best hypnotherapist that ever was. There's a book of his, it's a book about him called My Voice Will Go With You, which is full of little examples and stories about the different work he did helping people and different clients he had. And it is fascinating and amazing. This guy's grasp of how we function, think, and work as human beings was almost superhuman. And some of the things he did were amazing. I think I may have shared this one before, where he was called into a hospice where a lady was struggling with pain. The drugs they were giving her weren't really hitting the mark, And so he was called in to see if he could do anything to help her. And he literally went into that room and was like, "My dear lady, if a Bengal tiger jumped into this room right now and landed on your bed, would you be feeling pain?" And she went, "No, I'd be running out of the door as fast as I possibly could." At which point she realized, and it taught her mind, that she didn't actually have to be feeling all the pain she was, and her suffering eased back. It was that kind of amazing level of genius, but it's not that I'm talking about. I mean, that's creative in itself. And certainly when you read the stories of the things he did, there's a wonderful creativity in his approaches, sometimes a bit out there, some of them. He would do things like send people, there was a hill by him, and he would, again, using creativity, creative approach, people come to him with a problem, and he would send them um, up this, I think it's called Squaw Hill or Squaw Mountain, and it's quite a climb. And he would come, people come in, and if he wasn't sure of their commitment and wanted to see if he could test them out, he'd say, "I want you, before I see you again next week, to go up, and I want you to climb Squaw Mountain. And at the top there, you're going to find a stone." He said, "I don't know what that stone's going to look like for you, but when you find it, you'll know it's the right one that's going to allow you to get through this thing you've come to see me about. So next week, you can bring that stone and present it to me." And people would go and do this thing and come back. There was no special stone up there, other than any other stone was special. But that creative thinking plants a seed in that person's head, which then becomes a creative process for them. So the whole journey, they're imagining that they're going to find this stone. And when they see a certain stone, their mind goes, "That must be it." And it's creating an adventure. And they come back down, they'd give him the stone, and he'd say, "Sit down and go into trance." And they'd sit down, go into trance. And by the end of the session, whatever it was that was a problem suddenly wasn't a problem for them anymore. But again, that's not what I'm going to talk to him about. What I want to talk to you about with Milton Erickson is something that is absolutely amazing, and it's a creative, imaginative process. Milton Erickson, twice in his life, was struck with polio. At age 4, I think it was age 14, he was his first time, and he recalls, or he used to recall, should I say, um, lying in his bed. He was paralyzed. He was unable to move. It really hit him hard. And he remembers lying in bed, hearing his mother and the doctor having a conversation. And the mother was, what are his chances? And the doctor's like, "I think you can expect him to not be with us by tomorrow." And as this picture in front of you shows you, he definitely made it a bit further than that. But he was paralyzed, and he decided that he wasn't going to let this beat him. And where the idea, again, a creative thought came to him that, you know, what if he already knew that athletes would imagine, picture themselves achieving and succeeding. And he's like, well, what if I just picture and imagine myself moving my foot, bending my toes, wiggling my fingers? And over a period of several months, he basically imagined himself back into mobility. He went from being unable to move to get out of bed to, I think, 6 months after he'd been heard the doctor say he would probably be dead, he went on a canoeing adventure down a local river, went off with food and a tent, and spent several, I think, days, if not a few weeks. And this was a guy who'd been written off just through his imagination, just through the creative thinking that went, well, maybe if I was to start imagining moving my limbs, my fingers, then my mind would remember how it does that, or it would relearn how to do that. And eventually, and he did. And literally in one of the accounts, he remembers the first time his finger did that. And it just started from that to this, and then he was able, and that was the process. But that was a creative process. He was using his imagination to create thoughts and dreams and images of what he wanted life to be. And it slowly started to happen for him. He later on had polio again, and it did take the use of his speech. But again, he was able to imagine himself back into certainly a better state of health than he could have been. So that's Milton Erickson. That's why I wanted to share that. Like I say, the book, it's a great read. My Voice Will Go With You. You will find it quite unbelievable and very inspiring at times. I think you pick it up for about 10 quid. I think it's probably on YouTube as an audio book to listen to for nothing. It's an interesting read. So yeah, so that's another way that creativity can benefit us. When I perform a show, or if I'm creating a show when I'm performing, I will use my imagination as part of that creative process. I will imagine myself in the audience at the end of the show, having seen the show, to get a feel of how I want the audience to feel. I'll imagine myself at the end of the show on the stage and how I'm going to be feeling, and all of this and all feeds into the creative process. Like I said, it can help us solve problems. It can help us plan our path forward. Great coaching tool. And it's a wonderful thing. If ever you're kind of stuck, or you've got a friend that's stuck and they're like, oh, I really want to do X, but I feel stuck. I don't know how to make it happen. In fact, I've used this today. Simple question. If you did know what will make it happen, well, no, if you did know, what would it be like when you're doing it? And you get some, and suddenly you're bypassing the problem and just getting somebody to imagine themselves doing it. And weirdly enough, you kind of bypass the problem, get them to imagine, i.e., a creative process, a future where they're doing the thing they feel they can't do yet. Strange things happen. And what happens? They go, oh yeah, no, well, I don't know why this popped into my head. So imagine I've always wanted to go surfing, but I've just never seemed to make it happen, and there's something stopping me from doing it. And so it'd be like, well, okay, so when you've got over whatever that is, what's it like when you're doing it? And I'll be like, oh, it's great. I'm out there, I'm on the surfboard, I catch some good waves, I probably fall off a few times. And okay, so what was it you did to get you to that moment? Oh, well, I decided one day to get the board and stick it on the car and drive off. Okay, so what got to the point where you had the board? Well, I bought a board. And so, okay, so you bought a board. And rather than trying to work through the problem, you jump to the solution, imagine the solution, and creatively invent the steps that get you back to where you are now. And suddenly, when you look at that forward, you go, that's what I need to do. Again, a creative process. It's a lot of fun, that one. You can play around with that. So yeah, so it helps us solve problems. It can help us get past feelings of being stuck. Creativity has a structure, and there's an author, an NLP trainer, Robert Dilts, his stuff's very good. But I find this with hypnosis and NLP. Some people's stuff's really good, and the way they write about it just makes you want to just go and try it all out there and then. And other people, you know what they're saying is really good, but the thought of picking the book up the next time can be a bit of a struggle, because it's just, there's something in the writing style that seems to deaden everything. And for me, as a writer, it doesn't quite work for me. But his stuff and his approaches are brilliant and well worth exploring. So yeah, Robert Dilts, and he basically watched and modeled the behavior of creative people, people like Walt Disney. And he uncovered that there are three kind of mindsets that go into creativity. The first one is the dreamer. That's that part of you goes, oh, one day I'm going to do this, or oh, I can imagine. For me, I can still picture myself on. In fact, there's a picture of a beach here. It makes it easier. Picture myself with a retreat center up somewhere near here inland a bit, so I don't get blown away in the winter. And I can drive down here and do meditation groups on the beach. And that's the dreamer. That's the part of you that gets all excited and kind of dreams. The second mindset, the second part of that process of creativity is the critic. And the critic can be quite brutal. It's like, yeah, but that's nonsense. How on earth are you going to be able to afford an estate house and 2 million acres and your own beach and all this, that, and the other? So the critic kind of balances the dreamer, and you get this balance between the over the top dreaming and then the critic going, what, really? And then the third mindset that comes into play is the realist. And the realist goes, okay, what's left? The dreamer dreamed all this. The critic cut away took the wheat from the chaff, basically, made it brought it down to earth. And the realist goes, what's left? Can I do it? And that process, that creative process, can be applied to all sorts of things, whether it's a problem solving, it's great if it's a problem that you're trying to get your head around, something you're trying to get done or whatever. Create a really over the top, ridiculously big, stupid way of doing it, something so fanciful and far-fetched as a solution. And then allow that critical part of you to go, yeah, but realistically, where are you going to find a hot air balloon and a string of sausages so long that you can lead the dog out of the well? I don't know. That's not written down. That's just whatever came into my head. So the critic kind of pulls the idea and the big stupid dream apart. And then whatever you've got left, the realist can go, okay, so this now is what I've actually got to deal with. And within that, you'll find the solution, or you'll find that creative expression. It's like a songwriter. If I write a song, I have the big idea, the dream, and I write, this song is going to change the world. It's going to speak to the hearts of everyone. And then I create it, and the critic goes, yeah, it's all right, that bit's all right, that's all right, but it's not really going to, I mean, in all fairness, how are you going to get it out to the whole of the world? I guess that's easier nowadays, but and then the realist goes, okay, so still got a good song, what am I going to do with it? Where I'm going to take it? How do I so if you're thinking of a creative process, if you're wanting to foster that creative balance, working with the dreamer, the critic, and the realist is a great way to move forward with dreams, with goals, problem solving. So next time you think approaching something, allow for those three creative mindsets to work within you. And there is a deep well of creativity in all of us. So we're going to look now at a couple of techniques. The first one is just a really simple, and I've probably used this, you'll recognize it. Is a really great way of dealing with blocks, not just creative blocks, but any sort of block. I've used this one. I can't remember where I've put something, and it's great. It works. So we're going to look at that, and then we're going to go into the final practical exercise for today, which will be getting into that creative mindset and installing a creative mindset for you to access. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, now I don't know whether you've got a bit of a creative block at the moment. You may have. So I certainly know Claire has with doing what was it you needed to do, social media stuff. Yeah, so that's good. Just catching up with the chat bits here. We want to do salsa dancing. Cool. Yes, do it. do it. Um, so yeah, we're going to start with this text. So if you've got a creative block at the moment, um, then use that. If you think, oh yeah, so yeah, Sally, if you want to start doing dancing, and I know that there's challenges there with health and stuff, but there's going to be some level at which you can engage with it. And maybe that first level of engaging with it is just watching it, imagining yourself doing it, and just tuning yourself into it. And then maybe after that, it's kind of approaching a class and going, okay, explaining the situation and going, okay, is it possible? This is my situation. Could I come along and watch a few classes? And then maybe I'll be able to join in. Maybe if I start telling the universe and my body that this is what I want to be doing, it might bring that bit of energy in and that extra bit for me to be able to do it. Who knows? But there's always some way, there's always some level you can engage with those things that you want to do. And then there's always the big dream of, yeah, I'd love to be there. Teach basic steps. There you go. Look, it's all going already. You can do in your kitchen. There you go. You see, that's how it is. Love it. So basically what I'm wanting you to do is it's creativity stuff. So I always get excited around creativity stuff. Is if you've got a creative block at the moment, we'll use that because that's what we're looking at. However, if you don't feel that you've got a creative block, but there's an aspect of your life where you're feeling a bit stuck at the moment, go with that. So once you've got something, if you can kind of either let me know, say hello, put the camera on and wave, or there's that hand wavy thing that appears. There's Sally waving. Sally's got something. Sally number two's got something. Claire's got something. I mean, it could be, Jason, I know you do your darts, so it might be something around darts where you're feeling a bit like you haven't moved forward or something. Maybe pick that. So we've all got something. I love this part. So what I want you to do is think about that place where you feel blocked, where you feel stuck. So whether it's creative, whether it's whatever that is for you. If it helps, take a couple of deep breaths. Just think about the last time you felt it, last time you were in that situation. And as you're thinking about that, picturing yourself in the situation where you feel that block, that resistance, just be there, see the things you see, hear the things you hear. Feel and sense all that there is around that. And now what I'd like you to do is pay attention to your body as you're thinking about that block now. As you're thinking about that block now, where within your body do you feel that? So if I use the example of butterflies, yeah, if you were having to speak in front of a room full of people, you might be a bit nervous about it or a bit excited, and that would, in your body, be a sense of that kind of butterfly's stomach turning type thing. Or if you're feeling sad, you might feel a heaviness in your chest, or that kind of, there's the thought, there's the thing, and this is where I feel it within me. And that can be anywhere. I don't know whether you're feeling it in a foot, a leg, your knees, your elbows, your ear, your chin, wherever it is now that you're becoming aware of feeling that block within you. Just pay attention to that. And I don't want you to do like an intellectual process here. I literally want you to go with whatever the imagination comes up with. So I want you, whatever the first shape is that comes to mind when you think about that block and feel that block, what's that shape? Just get it now, get it in your head. It can be anything. It might be like a symmetrical shape, or it might be a random shape, or just a shape for that. Now that you've got that shape, I want you to give it a color. Give it a color. first color that pops into his head. Again, don't intellectualize it, just literally the first color that pops into your head, that's the color. So now you have a color and a shape that represents that old block, that old resistance within you. What I want you to do, and you can use this for pain control as well, by the way. What I want you to do is move that colored shape somewhere within you where it has to be smaller. It can help to actually sometimes mime it. So say, I don't know, say you had a triangle sitting in your belly and you think, oh, it'd have to be smaller in my shoulder. Then you can actually mime pushing it up. And sometimes that adds an extra level to this. It's not essential, but for some people, it really helps to move it. So just move it somewhere within your body where it has to be smaller. No right or wrong, but when you've moved it, it makes it smaller. Now, I don't know where that is that's made that smaller for you, but I want you again to move it somewhere else where it has to be smaller still. So if you moved it, say, to your shoulder, now maybe you move it to your knee or to a toe or to your elbow, to the tip of your nose, wherever you want to move that now. So it has to be even smaller still, just moving that now. That's right. Just notice what happens to that as you move it. And then move it again. So it has to get even smaller still. We're kind of bringing it down from whatever it was originally down to more manageable size, just moving that around. So I don't know where that is now, but I want you to move it one more time, somewhere where it has to be even smaller still. That's it. And now I want you, if you're left-handed, move it to your left hand. If you're right-handed, move it to your right hand. Make it smaller still. And from there, move it from the hand to the opposite shoulder. So if it's in your left hand, it's now at your right shoulder. If it was in your right hand, it's at your left shoulder. And now I want you to move it from that shoulder down to the elbow, making it smaller still. And from the elbow down into the wrist, making it smaller still. And I actually want you to hold your hand out as though you're holding it in your hand as you move it into your hand. So you've got it in your hand now. Imagine it, picture it, see it there. Feel it there. Sometimes it might be a lot smaller, but it still carries some weight. So make it smaller still. And what we do now, it's on your hand, is keep reducing that until it's so small that you can just throw that away. And when you know that you can just throw that away, I want you to just literally, imagining it there on your hand, lob it over your shoulder somewhere far away. Somewhere far away. And now that you've done that, made it so small and thrown it away that it can no longer bother you, I want you to think about that situation where you used to feel that block, where you used to feel that resistance. Try to find that old resistance. Try to find that sense of the block. Really look for it. Really try to find that. The harder you look, the more you begin to discover you cannot. Try to find it and find you cannot. If there is a little trace of that left, again, just shrink it down, move it to the hand and throw it away. Until whatever that was that used to get in the way of you doing whatever that is that you can now do, you can discover that you can now do that because having released yourself from that, having moved that away somewhere wherever that is now that it cannot bother you, you can discover that you can do and find ways of doing, achieving and creating whatever that is that it was that you were stopping yourself from doing in the past, that you can now discover that you can do. And the more that you discover you can do that now, the more you'll discover how in other areas of your life, you can begin to discover more creative thinking, more creativity, and enrich your everyday experience with that creativity. So again, just trying to find whatever that was that used to hold you back from that expression of creativity, from whatever that block was or used to be. And when you're certain that it's definitely not there, or it certainly feels a lot less, and you know that you can now begin to explore whatever that was, then just give me a wave. Just give me a wave, either cameras on or one of those hand wave things again. There we go. Sally's there. Marvelous. I've got blowing trumpets, Sally clapping. Marvelous. Excellent. That's the move it technique. And you can use it. I dropped in that you can use it for pain. I was at a festival down near Stevenage many years ago now with a good friend of mine, and I'd not long learnt this method of working. And he I was going to say he had a headache. No, he didn't. He had a hangover with a headache, is what he had. Second day in, he'd only been there one day. It was already a bit wrecked, and he was like, "Oh, I think I might have to stay in the tent all day today. Got a headache." And I did this very thing: picture it, see it, give it a colour, move it, shrink it down, move it, and when you're ready to be free of it, just throw it away. And we did that, and he sat there, he shook himself. He called me a name that I won't repeat, should I say? Um, because he thought I was just doing some nonsense, and actually his headache had gone. And he was like, "How on earth did that work?" And he's like, "It did, though." Um, so it's a good technique to have. It's a good tool to have there, because you can use it for blocks. You can use it for, you can reverse that process. If you need inspiration, picture that inspiration somewhere outside of you, floating around as a color and a shape. Grab that inspiration, place it in the hand, move it somewhere where it has to get bigger, and then expand that inspiration or expand that confidence, whatever it is that you want to use that. So it's a very flexible technique that you can be creative with, to help manage your inner world and your mind. So now we're going to go into the final exercise of today. And this is and again, it's one of those exercises, the more you repeat it, the stronger it's going to get for you. But we're going to anchor in some creative mindset stuff. So have a fidget, get comfortable. Just going to move myself because I've got a wire around my foot. There we go. Have a fidget, get comfortable. We'll take 3 nice, wonderful deep breaths together. And you may choose to close your eyes and relax and get the most out of this on the first breath. You may choose to close your eyes and get the most out of this on the second breath, or you may choose to close your eyes and get the most out of this on the third breath. But whenever you choose to close your eyes and get the most out of this, just follow the instructions and you'll get there. So taking a deep breath in and breathe out. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Just return to your natural breath, that natural rhythm and tide. And there's nothing much to do, just relax. The more you relax, the better you feel, and the better you feel, the more you can relax as you get more from this, by just following the words and the instructions. I want you to remember a time. Remember a time when you felt creative, really creative, and maybe you came up with an amazing idea, or you had a wonderful flow of inspiration that moved into action. Maybe you were inspired to do something and you did it, or just pick a memory where you were creative, where you were inspired really strongly. Now, it might be it might be you can't think of a time, in which case I want you to think of somebody else who you just think is super creative. They might be a famous person, it might be a famous musician or a designer or somebody like that. Or it might just be somebody you think, wow, they are so creative in all that they do. So when you've got a memory, or somebody, I want you to step into that. So if it's a memory, step into that memory. Be there, see the things you were seeing, hear the things you were hearing, doing and thinking. Just be there, get a sense and really allow yourself to feel and relive that memory. If, on the other hand, it's a person that you see as being super creative, I want you to imagine yourself now stepping into that person, seeing the world the way they see it, hearing the world the way they hear it, knowing and feeling what it is going on in their minds and their bodies when that super creativity is flowing. And just really be there with that. Really allow that sense of what that is to really build within you. Notice the thoughts. Notice what thoughts are there when that super creativity is flowing. And notice also now where within you feel that creativity. Where, as you're there now, do you feel that super sense of inspiration, of creativity, that drive to make things, to build things, to grow things, where is it now that you begin to feel that inspired creativity within you? And as you begin to notice that, take that feeling and spin it within you. Make it flow it within you, spin it within you, building up the memento. So it gets to the point where even if you were to try to stop it, you find you cannot. It takes on its own force, its own speed, and it continues to spin and flow within you. That creative, inspiring sense and feeling. And as that feeling is spinning and flowing within you, that creative inspiration, that wonderful feeling, I want you to take the thumb and middle finger on whichever hand you choose and just start pinching and releasing them gently together, repeating it as that creative feeling, as that inspiration feel flows through you. As that creative thinking flows through, just squeezing that thumb and finger together, then releasing it. And keep doing that now until you begin to notice that every time you squeeze that sense of creativity and inspiration just feels brighter and stronger. In fact, as you're doing that, the more you pinch and squeeze that thumb and finger together, the more that feeling of creativity and inspiration grows. And it now can begin to feel like every time you pinch the thumb and finger together, that sense of creativity and inspiration flows within you. And it moves within you and it builds and it builds. So every time you squeeze that, you notice it building stronger within you, that feeling of creativity. And now I want you to take a deep breath in. As you breathe it in, expand that sense of creativity completely and hold the thumb and finger permanently together. Squeeze them tight as you breathe in. Allowing that feeling to grow and grow and grow till it's so strong, and then release as you breathe out the thumb and finger as well, just relaxing and letting that sense of creativity, that sense of that inspiration, that creative feeling and thinking spinning and flowing within you. We're going to take another deep breath in. As we do that, that sense and that feeling is going to grow, grow, grow. We're going to pinch that thumb and finger together really tight, and we're going to amplify that creativity and that inspiration. Breathing in, hold it, squeeze. Allow it to expand, and then as it feels really intense, just let it go. Breathe out and release the thumb and finger again. We're going to do that one more time. So then every time you bring that thumb and finger together, you can enter into that super creative, inspired mindset in all that you're doing. Breathing in, pinching that thumb and finger, holding it tight, holding that breath, allowing that feeling to spin and flow and amplify within you now, flooding you with that creative and inspired feeling and thinking, and pinch it until it's so intense, and then release it and let it go. And as you let it go now, I want you to know that anytime you bring that thumb and finger together, that you need to access that creative mindset. You can discover just how easy you can access that in all aspects of your life, because creativity is not limited to the arts. It's not limited to painting and drawing. It's not limited to music and poetry or just dancing. Creativity can be a part of your life. And when we live a life of creativity, of inspiration, of the Arwen, as they say in Druidry, that flowing spirit that reminds us that there is no action that we do that hasn't got an element of creativity. And as you discover more how creative you can be in all aspects of your life, then you can begin to become creative about just how creative you can be. And you can always dream big, and you can always bring it into balance with that critical part of you. And then you can always find the right things to move forward with and create with every time you allow yourself to enter into that creativity. And what is that that allows you now, that maybe before was not so much as that as it is now, that can bring forward that flow of inspiration that is everything that is this, and much, much more than when you're truly inspired? That creativity can just flow now in all aspects of your life. Every time you pinch that thumb and finger, keep practicing it, bringing up those super states of mind, installing it deep within you. That's right. And when you're ready to move forward in life with a new level of creativity and inspiration that touches and drifts out into, ripples out into all aspects of your life, when you're ready to really experience that and start living that inspired creative life as a creative and inspired you, then and only then, when you're ready to do that now, begin to come back. We come back in here, back right now, being aware of your fingers, your toes, give your body a fidget. And when you're truly ready to embrace that creative aspect of yourself in all aspects of life, then and only then, open your eyes, be here now, feeling good. That's right.